Welcome back to Coffee Talk with Heidi. I am talking about the Sabbath experiment. If you're not sure what it's all about, check the show notes for more details. But if you are doing the Sabbath experiment with me for the season of Lent, this week we are talking about our next theme, which is to be free from work. But before we get into that, I want to ask, how did it go? Do you need to tweak your system? Just remember that if things didn't go the way you wanted them to for this past week's Sabbath, remember that it's called an experiment on purpose because we need to do some trial and error, and we'll have to tweak the system a little bit each week to figure out what kind of rhythms really work for each of us individually for the Sabbath. But this week, I want to talk about how Sabbath shows us that we are free from work. It's not a time just to seek pleasure and distraction from our normal life, but it's a time to press into God's presence and ask Him to help you find the balance and the peace regarding those things that we normally experience in work. And I want to note that in the Old Testament prophets, when the prophets are talking to the people about how they have abandoned God, Sabbath and abandoning Sabbath is often seen as an indication that people have abandoned God in their hearts, because it goes so deeply into the idea of, do we really trust God with our lives for our protection, for our provision, for our freedom, and these other things that we talked about what Sabbath is all about. When the people began to practice Sabbath again and make that part of their way of life, that was seen as an indication of turning their hearts back to the Lord also. Isaiah 58 verse 13 and 14, God says, "If you turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and if again you call Sabbath a delight and a holy day of the Lord as honorable day, if you honor this day, not seeking your own pleasure or talking idly on the day, but you take delight in the Lord, then I will make you ride on the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of your father Jacob, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." Now, what this verse is all about is God is saying, make me a priority. Don't seek to delight yourself in your free time, in your Sabbath. Don't seek to delight yourself only in things that give you pleasure for a moment or that distract you from your work, but seek to delight yourself in the Lord, who will help everything in your life make more sense when we pursue Him. And so Sabbath as a day of being free from work is not a day just to pursue our own pleasure, but it's a day to pursue delight in the Lord and keep the Sabbath as a way of keeping your heart turned towards Him. Now, a Sabbath way of life is not human nature, okay? It is really countercultural and it's very counterintuitive. The idea that prayer and worship can actually change things, very counterintuitive. We think we need to work harder to change things or make things better in our life. We think we need to do things. But God says, seek me in prayer and worship, delight yourself in me, and I will make a way that you would never have seen as possible. Sabbath is about trusting God, and trusting God is also counterintuitive. We think we need to trust ourselves, but God says, trust me. And growing in your trust of God is something that Sabbath can help with. When you read Exodus and Leviticus and other places that talk about the foundations of Sabbath, you really get the idea that God is not into the rat race. His idea of what is the priority and what is best for you is not about all of your effort going into things, but some of your effort going into pursuing God. And there's really two ways that I think God asks us to trust Him for provision in our life. And one way is the idea of the tithe, that all the money that we have and everything that we have is from the Lord. And so we keep 90% and give 10% back to Him of what He's already given to us. And the other idea is the Sabbath, that God has given us 6 days to work, and on the 7th day, we can rest and we can trust God with those days and with those hours, and trust that if I don't work for this day, if I don't check my email, if I don't do my to-do lists, if I don't do something productive, it's not a wasted day. It is a gift day from God to you, and for you to give to God as part of your worship towards Him. And so if keeping Sabbath is hard for you, or the idea of tithe is hard for you, ask yourself, why is this hard? Is it that perhaps I'm not trusting God in these areas of my life? But on the other side, we see a Sabbath is not a day for our normal work, but it is a day for God's work. And in the Sabbath, we see God blessing His people who were serving in the temple on those days. We see that the guards were on duty on the Sabbath, and that was blessed because they were involved in God's work of protection. And also we see Jesus actively working to heal and restore on the Sabbath. Guarding, worshiping, healing, and restoring, these are things that are holy work, that are part of God's work that we get to participate in on Sabbath. So maybe on Sabbath, you do something like think, is there a relationship that I need to heal? And you go pursue that relationship on Sabbath. Or is there a wrong that I need to restore to somebody? And maybe on the Sabbath, we work to restore something that we've done wrong against someone. It's a day for worship and serving. Or maybe it's a day that we engage in that spiritual form of seeking God's protection through intercessory prayer. That it's a day that we work to guard in the spiritual realm the people in our lives and the community that we're placed in. And we do things like engage in prayer for people across the world in Ukraine. These are ways that we can participate in the protective work of the Lord to restore life, to heal, and to worship on the Sabbath. So as you move towards the next Sabbath and think about this theme this week of being free from work, consider these things. Is this a day that I am delighting in the Lord, or am I simply seeking my own pleasure? Consider, if it's hard for me to not work for a day on Sabbath, is there a way that I am not trusting God with my work and my life and all the things I feel I need to get done? And the third thing is there some of God's work that I should engage in this week to heal, to restore, to guard, or to worship? So think about these things. I hope you have a great week, and go through the questions in the guide, which you can find online, link in the show notes. So leave me your comments. How'd it go? What are you going to tweak in your system this week? And did God show you anything as you think about the questions I mentioned today? Have a great week. Enjoy your coffee, enjoy Jesus, and enjoy looking forward to another Sabbath.